is part 5. Why Mitch McConnell is wrong. He said, we don't tax too little. That's false. Now, I just finished talking about the reduction in the capital gains tax. I'm now going to talk about dividends. Bush here reduced capital gains tax here to 15%. Now, that's very low considering the fact we're not in peacetime and 2 wars here are taking place. Previous to 2003 here, dividends have always been fully taxed as income. 39.6% here, 50% over here, 70% over here, 91% over here, 94% over here. How can you make that statement? Okay. Republicans keep saying we have the highest corporate tax in the world, and Mitch McConnell has also said that on Face the Nation. Well, the statutory rate is 35%. But the corporations don't pay that much. They pay an average of 13 to 14%. That's the effective rate. And that's because of tax deductions, tax credits, and tax havens. Well, let's just take the statutory rate here. It was 35 here. It went down to 34 here, but listen, it was 46 here, it was 48 here, it was 52% here. Back in 1945 here, excuse me, the receipts, the tax on corporate profits here was 40%. And receipts from corporate profits were 7.2% of GDP. Over here in 2010, receipts were 1.3%. Of course, they're not paying their fair share. Now listen, I'm going to go to the income tax paid by individuals. Mitch McConnell says we're not paying too much. Well, that's a lie. Or I should say maybe it's false. Listen, we don't, the statutory rate here is not on gross income. It's not on adjusted gross income. It's on taxable income after all these deductions. But anyways, let's just take the top rate here during the Bush administration. It's been in effect since 2003. Remember now, we're not in 2 wars. We're not in peacetime. We're in 2 wars. Okay. The tax on income was here 39.6% here. Clinton was 50% here, the maximum. But unearned income up here was 70, but it was joined up here. The 2 came together over here. It was 70% over here, wages, earned income and unearned income. But up here it was 91%. Over here 94%. How could he make that statement when we're not taxed too little? Okay. Let's take the estate tax. Since 1942, the estate tax here was 77% and the exemption 60%. But over here in 11 and 12, the exemption here is $5 million per person, $10 million for married couples. Likewise here, the gift exemption, lifetime, $5 million. And the top rate, 77% here, is reduced all the way down here to 35%. Now, if we go back here to 1975 here, 76, 7.6% of the states were subject to this tax here of 77% exemption, 60,000, and the annual gift exemption here was 3,000. Over here is 13,000. And you know how many states are subject to this tax over here? After they increased the exemption and lowered the tax rate? Less than 0.2% are pay this tax over here. Listen, if you've been watching the GOP debates, different candidates running for the nomination for U.S. presidency on the Republican ticket here, they all are proposing or promising more tax cuts. Now, why would they undermine the federal government here with more tax cuts and increase the deficits even more? Well, the reason is to get votes. And this is one of the flaws of a democracy. People vote for tax cutters. And to prove that point, you can see here with each president, the taxes go down because each time we have an election, they promise more tax cuts, and the tax rates keep going down and the debt keeps going up. Now, I'm going to go back here with Reagan because this is the beginning of our problems here. You can see the debt right here spiked up, starting with Reagan. Okay, now listen, Carter here, he ran for a second term as the trusted and trustworthy president. Reagan here promised a cross-the-board 10% tax cut. He said that would increase revenues and balance the budget. Well, he never even came close to balancing the budget. Okay, it was an unrealistic promise. That's what he said, though. Now, in the second term here, he ran against Walter Mondale. Walter Mondale says, I have a plan to cut the deficits 2/3. And what that plan was, it was to raise taxes here because Reagan here cut them way down here. From 70, the top rate here, all the way down here to 28. Again, the people voted for Reagan. Okay, we get over here to George Bush. This is Senior. Well, he was Reagan's vice president here, so he had a head start. But he said, read my lips, no tax increases. Well, that also was an unrealistic promise. The debt shot up here. And he had to agree to a tax increase, add one tax rate to the income, 31%. Okay. Now we get over here to Clinton. I read his campaign brochure, and what he promised was also a tax cut on the middle class. And he says, make the rich pay their fair share. Well, the people were not happy with Bush here because he raised taxes. But he was elected, and he did that. He raised taxes here. He added the 36 and the 39. He also had a universal health care program, which the people liked. And, that was scrapped after Republicans criticized it as being too complicated and expensive. But in the second term here, he ran against Bob Dole. And like Reagan, he promised a 15% tax cut across the board. Now, why do Republicans like that? That was the same type of tax cut that the Republicans passed here in 1947. You remember, Truman says the people with 2,500 income would get $30, and those with 500,000 would get almost 60,000. Well, across the board tax cut, the Republicans love that because a 15% tax cut on people with $1 million income, that's a big tax cut. But when it comes to people with an income of 20,000, that's a small tax cut. But anyways, he also promised a $500,000 child credit. Now, Clinton here, he promised, he said, I've cut the deficits in half, which was true. And he promised that he would balance the budget here by 2002. But he also promised a $500 child tax credit. Now the point I'm making here is, even though in this case, voters elected Clinton in favor of the big tax cutter up here, is that this is a ploy used by politicians to get elected. And this is the flaw in democracy. Voters voting in candidates who lower taxes. I'm going to get over here to the next election. Al Gore runs against George Bush. And George Bush says, well, the people here paid too much money, is referring to the Clinton tax surpluses. They weren't tax surpluses at all. And he says, well, I will send you a check in the mail of $300 to $600, 2 or 3 months. Well, Al Gore says, I'll use this surplus to pay down the national debt. Well, Bush's tax cut was bigger. He was going to double the child tax credit. He was elected. He got the most delegates. Now we go over here to the second term. He ran against John Kerry. And John Kerry promised to raise taxes. And again, Bush was re-elected. Bush promised to make permanent his tax cuts. No increases in taxes. Now we get over here to Barack Obama. He ran against Senator John McCain. And John McCain promised tax cuts on families, savers, the elderly, businesses, everybody. Now why would he do that when we have this huge debt up here? And taxes are already at a historical low point. Well, you can't get elected unless you promise people more tax cuts and more benefits. Now, Barack Obama, he also promised a tax cut on 95% of the taxpayers, and he would raise taxes on the top 5%. And he had this health care plan that was originally supported by a majority of the people, and he was elected. Well, he was successful in lowering taxes on the 95%, but he didn't get the increase on the top 5%. Now, the point I'm making here is that we have an election coming up, and you don't want to elect somebody that's promised you more tax cuts, because that's going to make matters worse. Now I'm going to attack this from a different angle. What I want to prove here, excuse me, I dropped my card. I got a signal and my time is up, so this is the end of part 5. Thank you.